Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I in my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, lost in His love. And this is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Oh, what a Savior, wonderful Jesus. 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 Death could not hold you. You are victorious. Praise to the risen King. Death could not hold you. You are victorious. Praise to the risen King. Oh, what a Savior, wonderful Jesus. Oh, what a Savior. En dit is mijn vreugde, altoos te zijn in mijn heiland. Jezus is mijn. Dit is mijn vreugde, altoos te zijn in mijn heiland. Jezus is mijn.
are unusual times. A few days ago, Prime Minister Mark Rutte appeared on television to address the Netherlands. It was a powerful message about how the coronavirus would change in everyday life. His French colleague, Macron, did the same, but with a slightly sharper language. We are at war. The shock is good. You only really notice that when sober Dutch people start to hoard spaghetti and tins of vegetables and even fight over the last pack of toilet paper. The future suddenly seems very uncertain and even anxious. Not only the fear of being infected with the coronavirus, but also the uncertainty that such a situation entails. Will I still have a job? Can I still pay my bills? Would there still be enough to eat? Last week, the #HopeBeyondFear campaign appeared on my Facebook timeline. It is an action of Steiger to encourage us not to be afraid today because we have hope in Jesus. It is a powerful message that is also central to this reflection. The good message, the gospel of Jesus, gives us strength to be less afraid of what is happening in this life. Paul, the writer of Romans letter, explains exactly what this good message means in the first 8 chapters. To make a long story of 8 chapters short, I will bring it back to 2 important key points. The gospel is that God saves us from something, and God saves us from something. God saves man from a certain emergency. To be precise, God saves us from death. When Paul talks about death, he is not just talking about clinical death, but talking about eternal death. The second point is that God saves us for a reason and for a purpose. He has a specific plan, and that plan is what Paul calls being in Christ. A very important idea to remember. What he means by that is that the idea of God is to make everyone he saves equal to Jesus, that they become equal in sharing his death and in his life. And then Paul actually said everything he wanted to say about the gospel. What else should we say about this? He says. But luckily, he changes his mind because in the back of his mind, Paul also knows that everyone has the question, how will this gospel you just explained to us help us with the fear and the difficult times we have to endure here on earth? Fear comes in many forms, but the most common form of fear is fear of an uncertain future. And this is what these 8 verses are all about. The point is that the gospel gives us security, certainty that scares us less. I don't know if you're afraid that God will judge you one day, but if according to Paul, there is something in this life that we really should be terrified of, then it is. If we seriously believe that there is still something to come after death, and that God has something to say about it, then everyone should live in great fear and uncertainty, because no one wants to discover after death that they stand before a God who is against them. But says Paul, we don't have to worry about that anymore. There is no judgment for those who are in Christ, he says. God assures us of this because he gave the life of his own Son for this. Through the death of Jesus on the cross and his resurrection thereafter from the dead, God shows that he has conquered death and will give us a new life. That is why God is not against us, but for us. Nothing can separate us from his eternal love, not even death. And that's good news. Death is not the end, and this life is not all there is. This is a certainty that scares us less. That rising from the dead is so unusual that Paul has no word to describe it. He even has to come up with a new word for it. He makes super victory out of it in Greek, more than conquerors. Yet it seems as if we are losing every day. Unfortunately, that is the experience of many of us in the world and also for the elect of God. Christians are certainly not quarantined to avoid suffering on earth, says Paul. In fact, he says, it is written, for you we are killed day after day and taken away like sheep for slaughter. Paul sees our suffering in this life as a kind of link that completes our bond with Jesus. He says of himself when he is in prison that he sees from his pain, misery, and suffering, that he is sure on the right track. He lives the same life that Jesus also had. It is a sign of security for him, a certainty that made him less afraid, because we are in Christ and thus become like him. We are like Jesus, and that is why God surrenders us to suffering, just as he surrendered Jesus to suffering. But, and this is the hope we have as Christians, as we suffer and die as Jesus, so we will also rise from the dead like him, and we will be more than conquerors with him. This is a certainty that scares us less. Our situation in which we all find ourselves at the moment is too fresh to really realize how serious it is. The blow only becomes noticeable after a week inside. Maybe you are stuck abroad because you are not allowed to return, or you are infected and you are alone in quarantine at home. Maybe because of all the social distancing, you have ended up in isolation, or you are even in intensive care. Although we are physically separated from each other and can only see each other through a screen, we know that we cannot be separated from the love of God. Our future is assured, and this gives us strength and hope to truly live a life in every situation and rise above all fear.